Greetings. This is your host, Uhire Beninye Beta, and we are in the show of the chat zone. I am with my colleague,
Omar Raisa, and today we are glad to host a very beautiful and talented young lady, and she's going to tell us more about herself, like her name, her age, her professional, and you're going to hear more about her. Let's welcome her. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Cynthia Lee Niwena Hisemo. So I'm 21. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I hope we're going to go through the rest later on. Thank you.
So since you've let's finish with the formalities and let's go into our talk of today. We are based on the theme of let's talk about depression, or more of depression defined. Could you please, in your own terms or words, be able to explain to people out there who doesn't even know that depression is real, or more of a mental health term?
Thank you very much. So talking about depression, usually it's a serious mental disorder or a serious mood disorder, because it involves a lot about moods. It can affect different regions, like our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and yet our physical health. So it goes in all aspects. I'll go more to it, on how a person could get depressed, what causes it. We'll be able to explain more how it affects all these regions I just mentioned. But what we should know is that it's a serious mental disorder. Yeah.
Can you tell us more of its types, so people could understand that it's not just a word, that it has categories and types and areas that it hits the most? Could you please be able to elaborate on that one?
Thank you very much. Going through the types, there are very many types of depression. There is MDD, massive depressive disorder, or just major depressive disorder. There is also bipolar depression. We'll be able to explain all of them. There is also seasonal affective disorder. And there is also perinatal depression. And then we do have the menstrual dysphoric depression.
Okay, those are all for many people. They're more of psychological. Could you elaborate them in more of a simple way that people could understand them and be able to find themselves it has actually hit me in my real life. It goes on I've actually gone through this. No, so make it simple for our viewers out there.
Thank you. Let's start with seasonal affective depression. Usually they call it SAD. This is where people get depression due to the season. It doesn't happen in Rwanda. It happens in those countries. They have this seasonal change that is very extreme. So when they're in winter or fall, you'd see them getting very depressed due to being cold. There are no many things going on. You do see how people get happy when summer comes up. You're going to have fun, and then so when it goes, they actually get to have that kind of depression. Okay, moving on. Let's go to something else that people could have very much in common, mostly ladies. Okay. So there is this perinatal depression.
Perinatal.
Yes. This kind of depression happens to women who are just giving birth to their children. Not all women go through it, but some of them go through it. You actually get depressed after giving birth, within the 12 months after giving birth to your children. And they don't talk about it because they're scared of people saying, do you hate your child or something? So that actually happens.
Okay, I do have a question on that one. I mean, it's good news giving birth to a child. It's good news. How could it affect someone's mood in such a negative way?
Okay, so since we are actually going to explain depression deeper later on, I'll actually show you how depression is not just related to you being sad or being happy, because it could come when everything else in your life is actually going positively. So going to the menstrual dysphoric depression, this happens also to ladies during ovulation or after ovulation. They could actually go through depression, and they wouldn't know. They would be like, what's going on? But that's mostly what's going on. It's just due to the ovulation and stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so going to major depressive disorder. This is also very serious, very, very, very serious. in this type of depression, which is actually the one that's more, how do I say, that's more famous around the world. Like, it's the worst kind of depression. It goes from mild and moderate, then it gets to be extreme, where you see a person actually committing suicide. This could affect anybody. It's not subjected to gender. It's not subjected to gender. This is for everyone.
Okay. So you mean to tell me that all what you've mentioned, like all types and categories of depression, I have found one common thing in all of them, that it is affected due to our environments, our physical, our physical areas, where we find ourselves. So you mean to tell me that it's affected with our physical aspect, or maybe the environment, or where you find yourself, or a place can direct how you feel. Is that what you're saying?
Here is the thing. That will take me to the point where I actually have to explain what causes depression. So there are many things about what causes depression. Let's start with the little things that people actually know about. The situation, our social situation. How are we? We lost a job. You lost your job. You lost the person you cared about. You went through a breakup. Like, all those little things that could make your life very stressful. That's the environment we're talking about. And then there is the second thing, a person's personality. A person's personality tells, or their personality traits, tells how they respond to the stress that is thrown towards them. Yeah. Let me get an example. Let's see a person who is very pessimistic. They love to catastrophize everything. Like dramatize. Exactly. Like, something happens, it's bad, on 10% rate, okay, but to you, it's bad on 500% rate.
I get it.
Now, this is a problem. Or people who have low self-esteem, like so many things, the traits of personalities could define how we react to things. And this is where we see how our personality is actually going to favorize us getting depressed or not. Another thing we're going to look at that causes depression is let's go to the biological term. They do say it a lot in class. They never explain to us what happens in the biological terms, like the genes, which shows how heredity could actually bring in depression. So there are types of genes in our body that they are called serotonin transporter gene. They carry serotonin. We'll explain how serotonin comes in here. So this gene, if I had a chalk, I would actually draw it. There are two small genes. Like, when a person, you get one from your mom and the other from your dad. Now, let's see one child got two small genes, like they are shorter. When they get too shorter, they are likely to get depressed at the rate of maybe 50%.
Okay.
Now, when you get one small gene in the other longest gene, you're likely to get depressed 100%. Like, it's actually higher. Okay. And then when you get two long genes, you actually could only get depressed for, it's not so hard. Like, for everyone else, like, you could just get depressed, that small depression, because you lost something. And it doesn't have to be diagnosed at the hospital, because it's just a little depression. You could get over it. So this is the biological, view of what causes depression. Now let's move on to the chemical imbalance. This is where it also pitches in what causes depression. So there are three, how do I say this, hormones. They're given into all neurotransmitters in the brain. So they have a lot of role in our, how do I say this, in our moods, in our everyday life. This is where we are going to see how depression could also affect our physical health and all the other regions I said. This includes serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. So I won't say one by one. I'll take them all together. These neurotransmitters are the ones that they give us, they control our memory, learning, pleasure, how we find pleasure into an activity. They control our emotions, our sleep cycle, our appetite, how we eat. So they actually monitor all these things. They are like, when we take an example on serotonin, it actually goes, like, it's produced in so many parts of the body that are very important, like the central nervous system. Okay. Yeah, like it goes throughout the whole body. So when you're depressed, all these things can actually go wrong because the release of these neurotransmitters is lower. Like, if you were supposed to get this amount of serotonin, it has decreased, and its decrease is actually going to affect a lot. If you are supposed to get like 80 neurotransmitters, this is an example, a mathematical example. If you're supposed to get these, and then they come as 20, this is where you actually do not want to eat, and your emotions are very low. So this is how you see it. You actually know that nothing went wrong, okay, but then your emotions are actually going down. And then all of a sudden, you can't concentrate in class. You are very indecisive. You can't even take one decision seriously. Like then the other thing, dopamine is very low. And then when it's low, you can't find pleasure in anything. Like, you actually wake up and be like, I don't even want to go to class. Like, I don't see why I have to do this. Okay, so moving from the chemical, if you think it's very understandable, like, let's go to the last part that could actually have a bigger role in causing depression. According to research, it's been very much shown how there is this part of the brain, it's called hippocampus. So it gets smaller when you compare it to the other, like to the average of the people. Like, when you see the people who've been very much depressed or chronic to depression, this part of the brain of theirs is very small. Let's see why. Stress has a role in decreasing the number of new neurons produced into this part of the brain. And if they're very low, like if there are fewer neurons, there's actually going to be a problem. So the part of the brain actually goes smaller. This is where we see how this part of the brain, if it's very small, it's actually going to be, very likely that a person could be depressed because of the fewer neurons than the average of the people. Okay. Yeah.
So my next question would be, with all the chemicals and biological terms you have explained, there's someone out there who's probably illiterate. You can't really sit down with him and tell him the types and categories and go on with it. But you can tell him in a simple way of like giving him hope. More of like, people may understand in a chemical way, but then there's also this, the side of the emotions, of the spirit, as a human being. You can also hit on that, so someone can understand that there is hope even though you are diagnosed with, like depression. And, could you please be able to talk on that one?
Apologies to the person who couldn't understand all the chemical terms. They were important though. So here is the thing. The most important thing to know, apart from all the chemical parts that I just said, it's not just about you being sad that you get to say, I'm depressed. Depression is not just sadness. Like, okay, let's see. When you say, let me find it, when you say I have malaria, you did not contribute to having this sickness. Yeah. You did not. You have no, you do have an idea that actually a mosquito had to bite you, and then you got, infected, and then you got sick. But then you go to the hospital, you get medication, and you get better. Yeah. Funny thing, it's easy for you to tell the people, I was sick, I had malaria. Now here is the funny thing, when you get to depression, I just shown how much the environment has 20% of you getting depressed. The rest of it, you have no control over what happens. It's a sickness like every other sickness. Now, but then we still feel like we can't talk about this. People are going to judge us. But yet you go to the hospital, actually a professional is going to take care of you and you get better. Seriously. People get better from depression and they function like everybody else because we all get depressed at a certain point in life.
Yeah.
We probably never all go to a therapist, but if it gets really hard, it's important that you actually go to have yourself checked, and you're actually going to get fine, seriously. Yeah.
There's this book I read once called Emotional First Aid, and it talked about how much, like when you're sick or physically, like on the physical aspect, like the first thing that comes to mind is for you to treat the wound or the sickness. But people don't ever think about, healing, emotionally or mentally, like, oh my God, I'm going through depression or I'm going through something else. Let me go meet the therapist at the first hour. Like, they don't think about that. Like, they more of emphasize themselves on the physical aspect. But as human beings, we are part of, there's the body, the physical, there is the soul and the spirit. So they have to understand that all three parts are equal and should be treated equally. And with, I think that part also should be emphasized on. That's what I think. So could you please elaborate on that one?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll first give an example. You see very much people talking about men being more aggressive than women are. And you'd wonder, it's not that they're very powerful than we are. We could also be powerful, but we're not always aggressive. Now you see why. Women are likely to actually claim their emotions, and when they're sad, they cry.
Yeah.
They let it go. They talk about it. They mostly say women talk a lot. It's very helpful. Yeah. We actually get to talk about our emotions. We get to cry. We get to feel it. Now, here's the thing about men, and it happens to everybody else, even women who do not want to talk about their emotions. Like, there are times you actually do not feel like expressing them. You do not want to be labeled weak. You don't want a person to actually think you're weak or you're seeking for attention just by talking about how you feel. Or because of how we grew up, we do not. I'm very sure in Rwanda, there are so few people who could be like, Mom, hi, how are you? Okay, I love you, bye.
I know, right? Yeah.
How many who does that? Yeah. We don't. So, the environment we grew up in kind of trained us to not focus on our emotional life. Mm-hmm. When we don't address it, it actually starts to affect every area of our lives, including how we act towards the people around us, towards people at work, everywhere else. So that's just one little thing of what it does. It's really a person just being aggressive because they can't address their emotions or they can't sit and feel them.
Like giving yourself a moment.
Exactly. It's important that you notice, I am feeling this, and sit and feel it. It's very important. As much as you actually say, I have a headache, I can't go to work because I can't work well. Now, what do you wake up not feeling well, your emotions are down, you don't want to work, and then you go to work, and then you spend the whole day being very angry towards everybody else, not responding to anyone. Why don't you stay home and get a day off? You need it. Yeah. Thank you.
Before I give the word to my colleague, I have one last question So, let's divide generations. There are parents and there are also us, the young people, the youth. So the older generations, the way they were raised, culture, traditions, they were, raised in a way of as you said it, they don't give voice to their emotions. Their ways of thinking are different than ours. In a way, this generation, people are giving, voice to their thoughts, their emotions, they're protesting, you're seeing activists. So could you tell a child out there, not just a child, a young person out there, who can tell his mom or his dad that he's sick or that he has an issue, and what would you tell him? How to approach it? You have to tell with the family, because I believe that to treat a person, he needs the people he cares about around him to create that environment of safety. So could you please tell me on that one, tell someone out there who needs to understand and who needs to know that it's not something that is that's going to a stigma, how people are separated right away. If they find out I'm sick, I'm not going to be welcome in the family anymore. No. And for the family and the parents to understand too that it's not a curse like most people would believe it, especially old generation, that it's a sickness. As much as you can be wounded on the knee physically.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like us to look to be considerate and realistic towards our parents, towards older people, and towards the country we're born in and how we live. How many people in their houses do see their parents having books about health, about so many different things, reading? Even take an example of yourself. How many times do you actually take time and read about important stuff? That's not the news, like COVID affected this number of people. No, you read about real stuff, like health stuff. No, we don't. We also know we don't. Considering also our parents and how they grew up and the history of our country, we do not expect them to come and be like, for them, they used to get depressed. They didn't know that was depression. Yeah. They went through it. And for us, we're actually growing up with this Western culture. We've been educated. Yeah. We actually know a lot. And then knowing them, we try to expect that they actually know it. Mm-hmm. So it's important that if you want to talk to them, we be considerate of how they understand things. See it like, how do I say this? Calmly, have a talk with them as much as you talk to them, trying to tell them like, Mom, I have this project, or Dad, I have this project. It's like this and this and this. I want this amount of money. Why would you go to them if you have to go through a process asking for money? Why do you go when you feel sick and you want them to understand you and be like, I'm depressed? Come on. They're actually going to say, I give you everything. How do you get depressed? Because they think it's sadness. So take time, have a talk with them. You'd be like, Mom, Dad, did you actually know that this could make a person become like this? And then they're actually going to get interested. How? Be a good child. Show them you actually learn. And then, talk to them about that, so that day when it comes, when you're actually not feeling well, it won't take you a lot of time to be like, I'm not feeling that. You just go, I feel like I'm getting into this state, Mom. And I really, really, really need you to, to do this for me, or to give me some time off, or to go like this. So everything is a process. Let's not think for them. Let's try to understand that every person has flaws and weaknesses and different experiences. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually learning a lot. It's like I didn't know anything about the subject. So you told us about the healing thing, the types, but I have a question. How can someone get help when they found out they have depression? Because you just told us the types, some signs. So how can someone get help from depression? And by talking about that, please tell us, are there different types of caring therapy? Because there are types of depression. Is there types of therapy? Like if there are two person that have the different issue, so do they have the different?
They're assigned therapist. Yeah.
Thank you very much. When you talk about how a person could get help, I don't want to start with go to the doctor.
I know, right?
Because to be honest, things are just very.
I know. It's the basic first responsibility.
Yeah, like having a mild problem and then getting depressed all of a sudden, you don't feel like you have to pay a lot of money to go and sit in front of a person and talk. Be like, what's that? So as much as there are levels of depression, there are things that do not, you could actually have a person who is very close to you and be like, can I talk about this? It's important that you address what you're feeling, but not just any person who's going to make fun of how you feel. It's important that it's a person who knows how to sit, listen, and try to understand. If you don't have this person, it's very much important that you find a therapist, because considering our country and the level of its how the mental health is being taken. Like, we haven't got to that point where every person has their own therapist. Only a few people have them. But then there is the level, like when you have mild depression, it's not so hard to actually sit with a friend. That's first. You could also be like, it goes with the symptoms when you get to getting help. When you haven't got to major depression, you actually still have little symptoms, like probably sometimes you feel very hopeless and guilty about feeling sick or not wanting to do anything. When you start feeling like this, it's important that you could even help yourself and be like, if I don't find any meaning in life, you could do something important for yourself, like maybe get a flower and plant it, water it every day. Try a small project to make you feel like you're important to yourself. And then there are times you feel like you're getting physical, like you actually want to punch someone, and we don't want to talk to other people or say our emotions. You want to get physical, then get physical, go and run, or find a punching bag, but let it go. But this is in times when it's still very mild. And then there are times you actually start having eating disorders. Like, we want to eat a lot not because we're hungry, but we feel empty.
Yeah.
This emptiness, we want to feel that emptiness, so we're just bored, we don't know what to do, and then you just eat. It's important when it gets to this level and you can't stop it, you can even talk to your physician. It's very easier to do that if you have a doctor. Like, seriously, you could actually go to the hospital and be like, I'm having this problem. Like, when you start get this very tired every time, like you're very tired for no reason, it's not like you've had a lot of work, that's how depression starts. Like, you're just very tired, you don't want to do anything, you're always in bed, and sometimes you are sleeping a lot or not sleeping at all. When you're not sleeping at all, you could start with little things like journaling your thoughts, or not taking coffee at night, or being like, let me get an app that, with sounds that could make me be able to sleep.
Rain, for example.
Yes, like rain. And then when we get to the moderate depression, this time you need to actually go find help. Like, it's getting to the point where you can't handle it yourself. You're sometimes, just able to sit and tell a person, I feel like this. Could actually go find a doctor. I didn't say that on the mild you can't find a doctor. You can't. You could find a psychologist, but you can also handle it yourself when it's still little. And then you go to the major depression. You're on the last peak where you start having thoughts, suicidal thoughts. It's important that when you start having these suicidal thoughts, if you don't have a therapist, you could actually talk to someone who is going to understand, or your doctor, your physician. It's important that you tell them, talk about them. Because talking about them helps you, it reduces the chances of you actually doing it. Because if you don't talk about it, these thoughts, as much as you think about something, it goes into plan the next day. You actually start thinking, after thinking, you start saying, I could actually do this. Then the next day, you actually find the reason to do it, and then you're dead. So when you get to major depression, no, we are not going to advise you to go to a friend. Go find a therapist directly. If you don't have a number one or a connection, go to the normal hospital. Maybe find a doctor and tell them, I'm feeling like this and I really need help. Seriously, I need help, and it's important. So going to the types of help, there is also medication included. Like when a person gets the major depression, when they're like on the last peak, there could actually be medication involved. And there is therapy. So there are very many types of therapy. They're the kinds of people who do not like to talk about what they're going through. Then those people could actually go into draw therapy. You could have a therapist who helps you draw things. You don't have to be a professional drawer. Even if you come, they give you somewhere to draw and you just put a point there. Then you tell them, I'm done. That's communication. You've already started. You don't have to be a professional to do this. And then there is another called play therapy. Like, okay, if I explain like this, it's going to have people confused about it. But you don't play like kids. They actually give you some materials, and then you build something. It gives a lot of information, because the thing I know about people is that what they put out is what's in their mind. So it doesn't matter whether you want to talk about it or not. Just find help. Who is going to give you help? They're going to assign you to the perfect kind of help that you need. Yeah, so there are very many types of therapy, and then there is medication included. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Very helpful.
Yeah. So, we've seen that how people can get help. We've seen so many things. And now I have a question. Like you, as a therapist, how do you see mental health level in Rwanda, in our country? How do you see it? Are people affected? How do people take it? Do people take it seriously? Do people get help? Do people even get sick? Do people even recognize that they are sick?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I say I see people getting sick a lot, I would say it because I've been to the hospital.
Yeah.
I've seen them there. But if you stay outside and look at people, you're never going to notice this person has depression. But then you see others that don't have depression but has other mental illnesses. Yeah. And when you see them, you will not say they have a mental illness. You will say they've been bewitched, or they have demons inside them. That's what we say.
Like a generational curse or something.
Exactly. And that whole thing of our traditional culture, or how we grow up, making us see things in a certain way, starting to stereotype things. Yeah. No one even wants to admit that they are sick, even if it's something as little. They don't want to say, I'm mentally not feeling well. So I would say in this country it's very low for so many reasons, not just how we were raised or the environment we grew up in. I'll take an example of in other countries. Let's take the States. In high schools, they have a lesson of psychology. It's just called psychology.
Yeah, they even have a school council, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we all know the verse in the Bible, what you teach a child is how they grow up. Like, okay, it doesn't say that exactly, but it's what it means. Yeah. So how you train your child, that what you give them as they're little, it never leaves them, whether positive or negative. If we only get to know depression, sometimes someone gets to know mental health when they're like 40. Seriously. Like, they've never had it in primary, in secondary, in university. They've never seen it. They've never went to a mental facility. So this is a problem. This is where we see not just our country, but other African countries having little knowledge on mental health, because we don't want to talk about this. We don't want to engage in this. And it's important for us to get to engage in this, that they are helpers, the implementers. The policy implementers have to do something about this. If they say put a psychologist in every health center, why don't you go ahead and put a psychologist in every school? Because children ain't going to tell their teachers, a teacher who, beats you when you do something wrong, or your matron or your patron, they're not going to tell you they're not feeling well. But if you actually put there someone they could talk to, this is very important for them. Actually, their knowledge about mental health is going to be increased. They're actually going to notice things, and the stigma around it is going to go down. So I would say it's very low, because no one wants to talk about it. We can't blame our parents for not knowing it, because they're not supposed to know everything. No one told them this. It's important that our government sits and be like, if you want this to be addressed, we have to implement policies that help it get addressed. Because it's funny how you see only youth having social enterprises. They're the only ones who want to talk about, let's talk about mental health every day. And who follows? Only youth. See, they're the only ones who are going to be informed. And not all of them actually have access to internet or televisions. So it's important that it's everywhere we go. Yeah, thank you.
I just had a question about what you just said about the government and private. So what would you ask the government to do? As you know, the way you are saying it, it's like people don't take it seriously and don't think it's a real thing. So what would you require them to do for us to know or learn, or for our future generation to not go through all this that we went through?
Yeah, more of like as a person who lives it, make it real for them.
I would humbly, very humbly, appreciate what the government has done trying to address mental health. And I would, in addition, ask them to cover the empty places that need help, the loopholes. Because if they say that there should be a psychologist in every health center, not everybody knows this. And sometimes you would find a health center that only has like a mental health nurse, but not a therapist. And yet, not everybody goes to the hospital. I could actually spend a year not going to the hospital. So it's important to put a therapist in every place that people could meet. Like you see a company, if a company, people work together, could even have conflicts, and one would get really mentally disturbed because of this stress or the conflicts at work. Yeah. It's important that the company has a therapist. It's important that a school, very, very, very importantly, I'll actually highlight this, that they have a therapist. Mm-hmm. Most importantly, if, I'm giving this example for the second time, like there have been a lot of numbers in research showing how young adolescents, ladies, are getting pregnant. What did the government do about it? They put CSC, like comprehensive sexual education, in schools. Yeah. Now, if we see people getting mentally ill, why don't you put psychology in schools so that they get informed and then they will actually know, I'm sick, I need help? Because a person won't know they're sick unless they learn about a disease. Mm-hmm. So this is what I would like the government to actually tackle on. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned on the fact of putting psychologists in, like lessons of psychology in schools, and but let's say there are some schools like public schools, like we were talking about Africa, like there are schools that are not highly developed, I can say, or put it that way. How can you like tell them, like those children that are more like in the urban areas, like tell them how important the psychology, because we may say it and kids from some kids may understand it depending on the age, but let's also talk about which age does it like more of like attack, like each category does it take. Does it attack more of like younger, like older kids, or even 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds can be, can be manifested of such, depressive behaviors, or inform us on that one?
Thank you. This is not subjected to all the types of depression. Some types of depression could actually attack children above 6 years old. So you'd get 7, 8, 9, you'd see them getting depressed. And then other types of depression could be more like getting into the adolescence. And then others could be subjected to everybody. It doesn't discriminate. Okay. So, but I would very much highlight the adolescents. Not saying that the older people and the children don't get depressed. They all do. But very much the adolescents, because of their stages, the stage between being a child and being an adult, you're actually going through a lot of changes. Yes, and so many people are actually labeling you for taking certain decisions, trying to find who you were, and you actually get to struggle a lot. So it's very important that we focus on them, because when they say we are depressed, parents are likely to say you are seeking for attention. When they do suicidal attempts, they're actually calling for help, and you'd actually say they're calling for attention. They are not. So everybody gets depression. But very important to actually look like this, and it's very sad that everybody else think when you're an adolescent you're seeking for attention. I'll give an example. I remember when I was in high school and I was struggling through a road, and then I would actually be sick, maybe like have a stomachache or something. Do you know what my doctor always said when I went there? Did your boyfriend dump you? Seriously? Like, I have a stomachache.
I know, right?
It was a lot. Like, they tried to see us as, everybody sees you when you're an adolescent. Like, everything you're doing.
Immediately label you like.
Exactly. Yeah. When you're an older person, they are very likely to believe you. They think you have serious issues to deal with. But when you're younger, this gets worse. So, like, whether a person is in the village or not, like, depression could get to anyone. And addressing them who do not know, like, wonder, why do we need therapy? Like, why do I need a psychologist in my school? Usually therapy is a journey to helping you discover what is wrong, where did it come from, how do I deal with this, and how do I prevent it? It's not counseling. It's therapy, because counseling, a person would sit and tell you should do this and this and this. But therapy, actually, a person lets you know what is wrong. You get to understand yourself. You get to discover your full potential and walk through it and actually get better. Yeah, so this is why it's important to understand that adolescents, everybody plus adolescents, are could be very prone to depression. And it's important that they seek help, whether they're in the village or in Kigali, actually. Thank you.
Okay, so when when you have a wound, like physically a wound, you're wounded, you fall down and stuff, you usually hurry up to get first aid treatment. But like you said, teenagers tend to, since they're labeled as people who seek attention, they don't usually voice quickly what they're going through, and it takes time. Could you tell them to be on time when it comes to such a mental problem, to tell them on time, to say, give them a voice, tell them that it doesn't have to be too late to be treated?
Thank you very much. When we say you're depressed, you need help, people might confuse it with this. Let's say boys love football. When their team loses, they would practically say, I am depressed right now. That's not how depression works.
Yeah.
I did say it's not sadness. They are clarified symptoms of depression that a person should look out for them to know they have to get help on time. Let me take time and go through the symptoms, if you let me. So a person, you'd start usually, there is obviously the mood problem. You actually don't feel happy. This is very common. And this is what people just label depression. No, that's just one symptom. That's not depression. There is the mood problem, like you completely don't feel happy, then you lose interest in almost everything. You don't lose interest one day and then you're depressed. No, because when you're going to actually diagnose the depressive disorder, we have to go through criteria and time. And then a person all of a sudden is like they're feeling guilty, like usually feeling hopeless and not finding sense in life, comes with feeling guilty that you brought this to yourself. And this would be very important to actually realize that it's going wrong. And then there is the suicidal ideation. This is very important. This is actually the most important thing, but it doesn't come first. It comes on the last peak. So there is also the sleep cycle. You either sleep a lot or you just don't sleep at all. Like you just all of a sudden start sleeping so few hours in the night, and then you're like, what's going on? And it goes on for a week, for 2 weeks. Or you just sleep a lot and you no longer want to get out of bed. And again, we also look at weight loss or weight gain. We usually measure 5%. You lost weight, you do not want to eat at all, and you're actually hungry, but you feel like, I don't have appetite. Or you just feel like, I want to eat every second, and you're not hungry. This is also something to watch out for. And then again, we look at fatigue. A person is all of a sudden very tired for that reason. Yeah, so all these symptoms, it's important, like when you start seeing them, and then they go not just for one day, they go for 1 week, 2 weeks, you need to seek help. Like, as soon as possible, you need to address it. Yeah, because it could go worse, very worse, and out of your control. Yeah.
Can someone live a normal life with depression, with depressive behaviors and actions? Can someone live a normal life, like attend school, get married, have kids? Can that happen?
You can't live a normal life if you have depression and haven't been treated. But if you've been treated, you have a normal life. We all move after, like, you could get sick, go to the hospital, nothing is working good, you don't even want to eat or something. This is really not normal for you. But once you get medication and you're better, you go back to life. Depression is the same thing.
Okay.
You actually need to know how to take medication, and if by any chance you want to stop your medication, talk to your physician or your therapist before you take that decision. Like they do, other sicknesses, you actually have to consult them. So the same thing happens. When you're treated and follow your sessions, therapy sessions very well, you live a very normal life. Yes.
When one hears about treatments, it jumps on conclusions like, I can get well. Like, I can get completely healed. Can one get completely healed with depression? Like, completely healed?
Well, so you live a normal life if you take care of yourself. Okay. If they tell you do not eat a lot of sugar if you want to stay healthy, you respect it. Then it's important that person respects there is going to be a trigger, and you're going to seek treatment, and you're going to get better. Yeah. So it's very normal. It's the way we live every day. Okay. Thank you.
We talked about depression, and when you meet someone with such an issue, you immediately label him, like, it's a stigma. They're usually like put apart or set apart. So could you tell our viewers out there who actually isolate themselves from other group of people because they think they're different, they can't interact, they can't have normal relationships? I mean, like, a human being needs another. So could you tell them that they could absolutely live with it? If they get treatment and medical help, they could absolutely live a life, their lives.
Thank you. Firstly, I would love to tell them I understand you for feeling stigmatized, because it's what the people around us make us feel like. Yeah. But after feeling stigmatized, it's important that you as a person, what you think of yourself is how you act. If you see it and feel like I'm holding a sin, like, if you have a mental illness, like I'm holding a sin, you're actually going to discriminate yourself. You need to see it and be like, I have a sickness. I know the rest of the world may not understand me, which is not very abnormal, because not everybody understands us to everything we do, which is very normal. So there is going to be people who understand you, and there's going to be people who do not understand you, but you do not have to discriminate yourself. Like, you need to cut yourself some slack. Mm-hmm. This was not your fault. Yeah. And it's very normal what you're going through, because everybody could go through this. So it's important that, all I need to do is take care of myself and know that it's not the end of my life. It's actually not even the end. Yeah, thank you.
as we reach the end of our show and program, I would love to give word to my colleague to ask one last question, and I hope it's something that she's personally interested in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a question on what you just said, and then a last question. So when you talk about taking care of yourself, like it means that there are things to do and things not to do. So what are those things that they have to do in case of having depression, and what do they not have to do in when they are in process of therapy?
When we say in the process of therapy, there is mostly what your therapist is going to ask you to do. They are probably going to give you assignments of what you have to do. That's going to help in your treatment. It's important that you pay so much attention to it. There are times you may feel like you don't want to do anything, but just please do it because your therapist says so. It's important that I'm going to push myself to do this for the sake of my treatment. This is the first thing. The other thing not to do is, there are times through therapy a person would feel like, why am I not getting better? And yet I'm through therapy.
You're like going through with everything.
Exactly. So here is the thing about going through therapy. A person could feel like it's getting worse because therapy forces you to envision what you're going through. In this time around, you don't avoid it. You have to, stand in it. Exactly. This is why people feel like, I am getting worse. You're not getting worse. You're getting better because you're taking time to feel it. So it's important that you don't say, I want to stop therapy because I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse. Because getting worse is the way to getting better. Yeah, so, and it's important that if the therapist says, avoid these kinds of relationships, they're toxic for you, avoid doing this, it's important that you listen to them. And if they say, please do this, please take care of yourself, please sleep on time, please eat on time, set a time to say, I'm going to eat and I won't eat any other time apart from this time. So it's called discipline. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you. I had a last question. I remember it happened to me too in high school, so I don't want people who are following us to fall in that mistake again. I had the signs of being depressed because of people surrounding me, but I didn't know what to do. But now I do, because you told me so many things. But so, I want to know, what will you tell to the youth, because I'm part of them. So what will you tell the youth who are in that situation, but they don't know what to do, or they don't think it's a real thing because of their surrounding? What will you tell them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I won't just be addressing the youth. I'll be addressing even the older people who are listening to this. I would like them to know depression is actually very real, and it's not just sad. And you don't get to feel like you don't get to tell a person, okay, let's see, would you go to a person who has cancer and then tell them, you're rich, you have a great family, you have an amazing job, you should be happy, cancer will go away? No, seriously, it doesn't happen. So don't go to a person who has depression and tell them, be happy, you have a very amazing life. They're not sad. They're actually sick. And it's very important that whoever that has never had it should know this. And to those who've had it, and who will, because you will, and who will not, who are very lucky that they will not get depression, it's very important that you know that it's not something to catastrophize or be to dramatize. Like, it's something that's a sickness that is not like cancer. It's actually better because you heal from it. The bonus of healing from it, you understand the rest of the people. You even start taking yourself out. You don't wait for a day to come.
Feel empathy.
Exactly. And you actually get to love yourself. You get to discover about yourself in which areas in your life you need to improve. So it's important that we give depression the weight it deserves. Do not weigh it too high or too low. Take it as it is, as a sickness, and know that it's treated, and you get a very normal life after it. So that's it, and thank you very much.
I want to say, first of all, thank you, not just for being here, but for existing.
Thank you.
Doing the profession that you do, I mean, I have a very bad experience when it comes to talking. I'm a person who thinks I can handle my issues and problems by simply avoiding it, or more of it's a thing, or more of keeping it to myself. Then it will go away, So knowing that a person like you, who believes it like a normal thing, who knows how much dealing and talking about it helps, it gives hope to people like me who have thought that dealing with issues is simply, they're invisible, they're not there. So I thank you all people who followed us today. I thank you that you've been with us from the beginning to the end, and we're ending our show today. I think this is a very personal thing to me, as it is to you, because it's a human thing. So let's make it personal and feel empathy to those that go through it every day.
Yeah, and thank you for people who are following us, and we would like to ask you to keep following us, subscribe on our YouTube channel, because more shows are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.